Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we're going to pull one over on you. As I say, pull the skin over your eyes, but then I can't remember what animal that references, so we're just going to pull one over on you, but no grift works as well with one as it does with two. So joining me as always, your con host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
If we're going to be grifting people, everyone should just keep in mind that for the entirety of the episode, you just shouldn't leave anything into the last scene, because that's how every grifting episode and every television show has ever worked for the history of time.
There's the thing that they want you to think is the twist, and then there's actually the twist.
And sometimes there's a few more twists involved in the middle there. But yeah, we'll get into that later in this episode. I'm doing fine today, Miles. Let's make some money here. I'm ready to go already, so let me go ahead and throw it back to you, because there is a reason I need to throw it back to you for making money, because we're going to spend that money for the man, the myth, the great linguini. I think it was $5.99. It's Miles.
I'm not worth it. We are talking about a grift episode that is not titled The Grift of the Magi, which we're going to talk about here a little bit from the commentary, but this is the episode The Great Money Caper, which originally aired on December 10th in the year 2000. I only get to do that for 2 more weeks, folks, so it's going to happen. But this episode had a chalk gag that was "The nurse is not dealing," and then we get a couch. It's a bummer, really. It's a letdown, is what that is. And then the couch gag, which is the Simpsons in scuba gear. But then we pan out and actually see that their entire living room is really just the furniture or the ornaments inside of a fishbowl. Very weird, kind of trippy, but pretty cool little couch gag for this episode.
What happens when their scuba gear runs out of air?
I mean, they're not that far from the surface, even like if we were to adjust it for their proportions and heights and whatnot. So I think they'll be okay. But definitely a good thing to be concerned about if you're going to go scuba diving. Air is an important thing to consider. Unless
Homer's living under the sea.
Under the sea. I already brought it up, so we're going to talk about it right now. And there's part of this this lineup, I'll say, that just kind of made me a little bit happy. I'll see if you can figure it out. This commentary track featured Mike Scully, Carolyn Omine, Ian Maxstone Graham, Don Payne, Al Jean, Tom Gamble, and Matt Selman. And I'll just tell you, I was just excited because 3 of the 7 people on this commentary track have been guests on this show, which is just kind of rad, honestly.
Yeah.
Including the writer of this episode, Carolyn Omine, who actually talked about the origins of this script. And originally, this episode was going to be more about actually pool hustling than grifting. But as it went along, they just kept editing it, and eventually it became more about grifting, and really none about pool, since that doesn't make an appearance at all in this episode. But it actually really did irk the writers, the fact that they had already titled an episode The Grift of the Magi, and that's such a perfect title for a grifting-based episode. They did land upon this, which there was the Great Muppet Caper, which is probably what the inspiration for this episode was, but it definitely didn't hit as nicely as they felt that the Grift of the Magi would.
I don't even remember what happened to that episode now, but I know we learned about grifting in the other episode too, the Carney episode.
That might be the one, man. Maybe that's no, I don't think that's right. But the one where Ernest was a guest star.
Yes, exactly.
The Carney Code.
We've learned about grifting on The Simpsons before. That's for sure.
We definitely can't remember anything about the episodes we reviewed. Too many of them. That's what I say. I also learned something about Carolyn on this commentary, which made me really happy because it's something that I too feel connected to in this way. But Carolyn has a reputation as a writer on the show as being the one that does like a ridiculous amount of research for various topics. So through the writing of this script, she actually got really into reading a lot of books about grifting and then watching movies about grifting, which she too points out the same thing that you did at the beginning of this episode, where it's like every grifting movie always has the same thing where you think it's all over and then you get like that extra layer of twist. There's not a single one of them that varies from that thing. But I just do the same thing. Like, even if I'm writing for like a roast or something, it's like I'm roasting Michael Myers. So like, I'm not just going to watch Halloween. I'm going to watch all 6 Halloweens, the Halloween remake, the Halloween sequel remake that nobody likes. And the new Halloweens, because I just want to dive in.
It's because you're a Halloweenie. I think that episode was Bart Carney, if I remember correctly. Now, from
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then I want to point out that Miles just grifted all of our listeners.
What I do?
He says 3 people in that commentary have been on our show, but only 2 of them have actually been on our show. Miles.
False.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that we had Tom Gamble on our show.
We haven't had Tom Gamble on our show. We had his son Henry. We had his son Henry Gamble on our show, which would have counted as a half if you wanted to go that way. But we've had Mike Scully on the show. We've had Carolyn Omine on the show, and we've had Al Jean on the show. So you, sir, just forgot the showrunner of The Simpsons that we actually had on our show. I think you're the one that's at fault here, my friend.
No. I'm pulling a con on everybody that you're supposed to play along. Don't you know how improv works? You're always supposed to say yes to everybody.
Oh, I didn't realize that we were in a scene. I apologize. Improv is life, Richie. Improv is life.
I think I got focused on the Gamble part because I very much enjoyed all of our guests, but I enjoyed talking to a younger guest like Henry, who's still got a young mind that's funny like everyone else.
Well, and I feel kind of dumb in hindsight on that one. But like, also I think that he was like happier about the fact that this was the case, but I did not realize that Henry Gamble was Tom Gamble of The Simpsons fame. Like, when I invited Henry to be on the show, I reached out to Henry because of his work on F is for Family. And it just so happened that he was the son of a Simpsons writer, and I failed to do my due diligence on that. So maybe I did grift everyone because I don't do enough research. Suckers, I should know the entire Gamble family tree by now, apparently.
The gamut of Gambles. Sounds like an interesting TV show. This is a grift because we're really going to talk about the last season of F is for Family now.
Yeah, that's all it is. This was us all reading out to get to the conclusion of F is for Family. I guess we should theoretically get back to the script. What do you think? Especially since getting back to it means starting it.
Yeah, there you go. The best place to get back to is the start.
Absolutely. Which this episode opens on a parody of the Magic Castle. In this case, in the Simpsons universe, it's the Magic Palace. The Simpsons are valeting their car, which actually seems a little odd for the Simpsons' behavior, but Homer does very sternly tell them not to take his car for a joyride. And you can see that the valets are like actually visibly disappointed. Like, they totally were going to, except for they were told not to. And then Homer takes his like little toy octopus off the key ring before giving it to him.
Yeah, taking all the fun out of it, Homer.
The Simpsons are greeted by not only a waiter, but also their mentalist for the evening. And pushes up against his forehead to try to telepathically receive the drink order. For Homer, he's sensing something foamy. Is it a beer?
No, he literally just goes, is it
I was trying to set you up. Damn it. I was trying to set you up to cut me off. That's why I had like the beer.
Anybody that knows Miles knows he talks too fast to be setting people up in those regards anyways.
You just got to get with it, dude. You're clearly just waking up still because you're not firing on all cylinders.
I'm just more of a shotgun spread, just firing on across the wide range and hopefully
shotgunning like you might a beer. Yes. How did you know?
Yeah. See, it's too fast. Take 27. Go.
Homer. Oh, and when Homer's like, "How did you know?" You see his like beer belly burst out of his shirt and actually spread out onto the table. But to Questo's credit, he has a beer ready for him. And then another connection to both you and I, sir. In this case, for Marge, he guesses a Long Island iced tea. and he actually pulls like a ridiculously long glass out of his sleeve, or is it out of his jacket, not his sleeve?
Oh, they ought to call that a large island iced tea. Long is better.
Lisa is surprised that she's going to drink that, and Marge's like, well, maybe just a sip. I don't want to offend our mentalists.
Ooh, she doesn't like it. I'll just die.
I love that. He's like sitting off in like the servers area, like watching her enjoy her drink and like worried that he guessed wrong. Yeah. Which I say that's a connection to us because Richie and I drank a lot of Long Island iced teas in college. And if I had to pick one, I would still say that's probably my favorite cocktail. And in this case, it's also, according to the IMDb trivia page, also show creator Matt Groening's favorite drink, which is why it was featured here.
All I want to say is don't do it, Marge. They're still quite good to this day if you occasionally get to have one for special occasions, but don't do it, Marge.
They work. I think when am I going to a different show, maybe a show that we could have a best darn everything about one day. I don't know if you're a fan enough of it, but I used to really love that 70s show. And there's an episode where Eric and Donna go on like one of their first dates with fake IDs, or I don't even know if they have fake IDs now that I say that. But long story short, Donna orders a Long Island iced tea, not knowing that it's an alcoholic beverage, and ends up getting super drunk. And I remember it being a good time in terms of episodes.
Is that when Eric gets mad and leaves and goes to a church and takes over the Venom costume?
Yeah, exactly. He just curses Peter Parker's name.
Yeah.
For some reason, his date with Donna really turned him off to Peter Parker. Marge has taken more than a sip of this drink. And like in the background, by the way, arguably the greatest magician of all time is working because he's making a tiger levitate like out of his, that he pulled out of his jacket. Yeah. Lisa's even like, Mom, you're missing a great show.
You don't know what I'm missing. I'd like to visit that Long Island place. If only it were real.
And this is where we kind of see another little role reversal situation, because whereas we would expect maybe Homer to do this type of thing, you definitely don't expect Marge to get uncomfortably drunk in public, we'll say, which is what she is stumbling towards at the moment, because when a volunteer is called for, she actually like aggressively stands up and is like, I'll do it. I always end up doing it.
Right. It's the danger of those Long Islands, man. They
give you the long confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
I like when the magician Diablo asks who's the gentleman you're with. She's like, that's no gentleman. That's my husband.
But
and Lisa's like, wow, Mom got a laugh.
I wish she drank every day.
That's reminiscent of the Hank Scorpio episode where it was determined that it seemed like Marge is always just a little bit of boredom away from an alcohol problem. There's a really funny moment here where the magician is kind of getting some like sympathy, or not sympathy, just kind of like some courtesy applause for Marge. And when Marge gets the clap, she's like, I didn't say that for clapping. Which is actually a reference to a very famous speech by, actor Cowboy. I'm blanking on his name.
John Wayne?
John Wayne, thank you. John Wayne.
How I got that one right.
Actor Cowboy, I feel like that was a pretty good charade.
No, that was a great. There's only one person.
Password. Yeah.
I was definitely joking.
So John Wayne famously got drunk at one time, apparently many times while giving speeches, but one of these was at a high school commencement ceremony, or possibly a college commencement ceremony. And he said something. He was clearly like stumbling drunk. And he says something that gets an applause, and he like cuts him off. He's like, I didn't say that for clapping. So this Marge line is a direct reference to John Wayne.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because I felt like that was a little bit mean of a line by Marge, because I feel like it's another knock at Homer where she's like, I'm just telling the truth. But that makes a lot more sense. But I'm curious, Miles, if you know, well, if you've ever considered this before, but when a cowboy's putting their clothes on, does that mean they're ranch dressing?
Nice.
There'll be more today, I'm sure.
That was so cheesy it made me blue.
Hey.
I actually really like this scene, and I feel like it represents the way you feel about me sometimes, because Marge, the magician, is going into his bit and he's just talking and talking, and Marge's like, "You talk too much, abracadabra, am I right?" And like the women love Marge specifically, like the whole crowd's laughing, but the ladies in the room are like, "Yes, we get it."
And I'm sure this is how Miles feels whenever I speak up and believe in myself, because Diablo puts a ball gag on Marge to shut her up.
That's true. It's exactly how I handle Richie when he's talking too much. That's why it took us forever to put this show on video. I had to get past the network censors. So Diablo the magician finds a creative way to shut Marge up and tells her that she won't feel a thing because she'll feel 4 things. And she's put into a contraption with 4 guillotines, and all the blades fall in a manner that look like they're going to slice Marge into, I guess, what would that be, fifths?
Oblivion.
And of course, the last minute, Marge disappears. Unexpectedly, a bunch of monkeys come out, and I love Homer's like, "So she was made of chimps."
Man, magic can do anything.
Lisa's the only one in the family who's actually concerned. Like, what happened to our mom?
I'm right here.
And off stage, what was that movie? The Illusionist, that Edward Norton movie. It's almost like the ending of that, but in this case, off stage, Marge comes out of a giant banana peel. Little different from the film. And then, of course, the monkeys come over and start like attacking Marge because she seems like a giant banana.
Now, the parts that do well for the magician in this scene is that the monkeys are all dressed exactly like Marge. So that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that I want to point out here is that when the monkeys are going after her, she seems a lot more sober at that point, which I guess
Have you ever been attacked by 4 chimps, sir? It'll sober you right up.
When something happens to you in that state of mind, when something serious goes on, it tends to sober you up quite quickly.
100, man. I like the implications of the monkeys all being dressed as Marge are this. It's either 1, magic is completely real, or 2, they have a giant tiny wardrobe that has every possible outfit of any volunteer that they have in the crowd so that they can have 4 matching of that person's wardrobe anytime they do this trick. Both of them are equally plausible.
It's like the magicians watched every episode of The Simpsons to get all the townsfolk involved.
They just have that poster up in the wall, and they just make sure they have 4 miniatures of everything.
Exactly. It makes sense. It tracks.
There's kind of a fun little cameo right here that you wouldn't necessarily expect. There's a voice that comes on over the announcement that says essentially like, "Warning folks, this monkey attack is not actually part of the show." And that voice is done by Mike Reese, another guest that we've had on the show in the past. And they literally had no memory of why they had him do that. They were literally, it's probably like a last minute thing, and they didn't have any voice actors available, so they just threw him in the recording booth and got what they needed. Nice. And with all love, due respect, Mike Reese does sometimes have that kind of voice where, it'd be very much like if you were getting a harsh announcement, he would have the right tone for that delivery.
Yeah, I can get along with that too.
Mm-hmm. We see that the magic show exits through the gift shop like all good magic shows do. I believe this was either Mike Scully or Matt Selman, and I apologize, I can't remember who said this portion, but this was entirely based on a vacation that they took to Las Vegas where they took their kids to the Lance Burton magic show. And after you leave the show, you actually are like forced through a gift shop where they basically sell you all the magic tricks that you just saw performed on stage, a lot of them. So they were complaining about how like it's like a trap for kids because, of course, every kid walking out of there is going to want to get stuff. The whole double exit through the magic or through the gift shop, though, is pretty clever because he's like, "Oh, sorry, kids, I can't buy you this because we're already out of the gift shop." And then it opens up into like the gift shop,
the gift shop annexation or whatever.
Yeah. Good times.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, did you do magic as a kid? Did you ever get a magic set?
No, I had a friend in elementary school that was very, very much into magic and had all kinds of stuff. So whenever they'd have slumber parties or whatnot, we'd all mess around with a magic 8 ball and then get him to do magic tricks. Miles, as an adult, did you ever do magic?
I do and did. I still unapologetically love magic. I think it's fantastic. Still think Penn and Teller are the greatest to do it in terms of total package. Just they're not necessarily the greatest sleight of hand artists ever, but with their personalities, their showmanship, and just their act, I enjoy their brand of magic more than any others. And I'm very excited when they will be on the show again, I think, moving forward, unless we've already covered that and I'm just an idiot. But, either way, yes, I do have still to this day a pretty extensive magic collection. But ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be good at magic. I've never been good at magic. I can do a couple of tricks decently well. Like I can fool kids and drunk people. That's my target demographic. If you're a child of a certain age or a adult of a certain number of beards, I can pull one over on you. Be exactly.
I mean, that's pretty much the target audience of all magicians, I think, are kids or drunk.
That's why there's a there's a 2 drink minimum for laughter at comedy clubs. There's a 2 drink minimum for amazement at magic shows. 100%. But Bart is, of course, like any kid who is coming through a gift shop at a magic show. He wants a magic kit. It's what catches his eye, and that's what Homer's excuse falls flat when they have to go through the gift shop annex. And Bart ends up with his Royal Magic College party magic, I think, or something like that. And
Lisa
even is like, that's a party magic college.
It is not.
They get into an argument about that. That's hilarious. Marge is starting to nurse a hangover, it seems, already. She hasn't even gotten to sleep yet, but on the drive home, she's like, you two need to stop. Mommy needs some quiet time.
And then the weirdest part of the episode occurs.
Is this the weirdest part of the episode? I would argue maybe one other spot gets equally as weird, at least. But yes, a giant sturgeon, the fish, not my stuttering enunciation of some sort of doctor, but a giant sturgeon comes falling from the sky and lands straight on top of the Simpsons car, almost if by magic. But it turns out it was actually just the Russian space station left the hatch open. Which, funny enough, from the commentary again, they talked to the Simpsons staff, specifically the writers, talked about how much backlash they got about this joke, because apparently people are really annoyed that they just thought it was so stupid that there would be a screen door on a space station. And like, they're like, of all the things to get mad about, like you could get mad about the 4 monkeys dressed like Marge. That doesn't make sense. You could get mad about them cutting to like surfing at the end of the episode, but you're like mad that there's a screen door on a spaceship. Like, come on, guys.
I mean, maybe it's the porthole.
It's not like they were on a space station with like the hero they needed, which was that, iron rod or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how does everybody know how a Russian space station was built in the early 2000s?
Maybe they have screen doors on Russian space stations. Yeah. You don't know.
Most of their materials are poorer quality.
You're not like a Russian Sturgeon or any other sort of doctor.
Apologies to anybody in Russia listening right now.
So we very quickly see Bart is starting to get, decent with his little magic act that he's got going on here. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm skipping an entire section with them having to get their fish repair damages done.
They left the fish on the car. Smart move, Homer.
And because it's a foreign, right? Yeah. But because it's a foreign fish, there's an extra charge. It's $6,500 plus $350.
Oh, I can't afford that.
This is apparently where Bart has already been practicing magic off screen, because he's already at a place where he claims he can make some money with his magic act, and he pulls Snowball 2 out of a top hat.
He couldn't breathe.
Okay, so that actually legit used to be a big time issue in the magic community. There's a lot of animal abuse with the way that those those animals would be produced out of thin air a lot of the times. But I will say, at least every magician I know personally that works with animals, like treats their animals like babies, like absolutely like adores their animals and would never put them in harm's way.
Well, that's good.
We see that Bart is actually now taken by Homer to the docks, or the squid port, if you will, so that Bart can do his magic and try to earn some money, basically like putting the hat out and getting some street credit going.
Step right up. See the magic boy with his mystifying feats that will leave you scratching your head until it's raw and bloody.
We see the Flanders, Ned, Rod, and Todd all watching Bart in amazement as Bart pulls out flowers from Ned's pocket.
Come on, pony up, Flanders. The kid's not turning tricks for nothing.
Oh no, I could never support the black arts.
Black arts?
Yeah, you know, magic, fortune telling, oriental cooking. I'm not sure if that was racist. I'm sorry if it was. And then we see Michael freaking Jackson come up with 4 puppets, essentially doing a solo act of the Jackson 5. Mm-hmm. And he's basically like, hey, this is my spot.
Okay, we'll move. We don't want to cause any trouble, fellas.
And Bart's like, Dad, there's only one of them that's real.
I know, but which one?
I remember watching this episode as a kid, actually, and I actually remember, this is another episode, I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way now and say, I remember loving this episode as a kid. I only like this episode now. I don't feel like I had as strong of feelings about it now as I did then. I think, honestly, I love the idea of grifting when I was, like, of the age when this episode came out. I was, like, 15, and I was like, yeah, con artist seems like a great career choice.
With no repercussions whatsoever.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. But yeah, either way, the Michael Jackson and his 4 puppet brothers are able to intimidate Homer off the scene.
That definitely made me crack up as a kid too. And there's one other part that really made me laugh, or like I would even talk about it at school, and it's really stupid, but I'll talk about it when we get to it.
Hell yeah. Now I'm excited. Foreshadowing or teasing, if you will.
I think it comes up pretty quick.
Homer and Bart are at home or later that day, it seems, or maybe the next day, and they're counting their money, and Homer's disappointed. 60 cents? I would have made more if I'd gone into work today.
Hey, don't blame me. I got to compete with TV and the internet.
Ooh, the internet's new on the scene at this point, too. Mm-hmm. A good son would come through for his dad.
Yeah, and a good dad wouldn't miss his son's Little League games.
Hey, I told you, I find them boring.
Well, I showed up for all your stupid interventions.
They're like, actually, I said they're at home. I was wrong. This was actually them counting at the squid port still. Because at this point,
how would they get home?
At this point, Homer actually storms off and leaves him at the squid port, tells him he can walk home, which even Carolyn Omine on the commentary was like, yeah, I was really pushing the lines of how, like, this might be, like, the worst thing that Homer's actually done to Bart up until this point. Because, like, he doesn't just, like, leave to scare him. He straight up leaves, and it does not seem like he would be coming back at any point.
Yeah.
And Bart's like, I can't. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't walk home with all this stuff.
And he sits down and looks awfully pathetic as he puts his top hat on the ground and is just legitimately sad. But he doesn't realize it necessarily at this point. But looking pathetic as a 10-year-old on the street is apparently very sympathetic, because immediately Mrs. Hibbert comes up and is like, oh, you poor boy, here's some money for bus fare. Sideshow Mel is there, and even the Michael Jackson guy. Yeah. Even the Michael Jackson puppet guy comes back, and he's like, come on, brothers, dig deep. And they all pick out money out of their pockets and drop them in 5 even stacks.
Yeah, which is weird that the puppets have money in their pockets as well.
Hey, you can't tell which one to tip, man. They all look so real.
My issue with this and some of the scenes coming up is, how does everyone in town not know who Homer and Bart are?
Well, they had to drive all the way to the squid port where they only see people that they see casually, like Mrs. Hibbert instead of Dr. Hibbert. And Sideshow Mel instead of Krusty.
They've all been on the Krusty show, but yeah. That's a good. Mel would have had better recollection of him than Krusty would probably.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. He's like a thoughtful human, it would seem, in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
As Homer's driving home, still cursing his son, though, Bart pulls up next to him in a taxi, and he's got his hat like overflowing with cash. And immediately cut to the Simpsons home where Bart is eating a steak, which again the commentary points out, because every 10-year-old with a hat full of cash is going to go buy a steak. Like that's the first thing you're going to do.
He knows a guy.
He knows a guy. Yeah, well, Bart almost immediately realizes that like people thought he was a charity case, so they gave him a lot of money. And then it's Homer who's like, "Oh, really? Well, maybe we could do that again. You think you could look even more pathetic?"
Bart messes up his hair, rips his shirt, and starts whimpering.
You know, his face stretch there kind of reminds me of the beginning of when you first turn on Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64, and you can like stretch Mario's face around. Yeah. It's almost like they did that to make him look droopy and pathetic.
Nice.
Oh, that's beautiful. We could make a fortune.
But wouldn't that make us con artists?
Well, yeah, but God conned me out of $6,500 in car repairs.
So, in a way, we'd just be balancing out the universe.
There you go. We'd be stealing from people we know. It's just like the seasons.
Sounds good. Want to eat my fat?
I think you know the answer to that.
He's talking about his steak, for what it's worth.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it somehow made it worse that you clarified, but yes. And that fat sucking is how we take our break into the end of Act 1 at a timestamp of 6 minutes and 45 seconds. We open up Act 2 up in Bart's treehouse, where he is reading a book called A Child's Garden of Cons, looking for scams to pull. And that book is actually based on the actual book, which is A Child's Garden of Verses, which I think are like song verses from the Bible or possibly just verses from other places. I don't really know, but it's a parody of an actual book.
I was really hoping to say on the actual book, like that teaches you how to con people, because I was like, I want to read that, not to actually do it, just to see what it says in there.
You know, I've read a lot of poker books over my day, and I'm trying to. I'll have to come up with who it is because I'm on a blank. But one of the like best poker players of all time essentially wrote a book about all of the like cons that he'd pulled in his life, and he wasn't really as much as like fleecing people or like conning them, but it was just he would come up with like really weird bets, and so like famously, this guy actually bet like the champion ping pong player, like one of the best ping pong players in the world. He essentially made like $1 million bet with this guy that he could beat him in ping pong. The only stipulation was he got to pick the paddles. They would be the same. They would be fair and balanced. Like one would not play with like a shitty paddle and he'd play with a good one. They would play with the same paddles, but he would pick what they were. And he actually trained for like 2 months straight playing with a empty glass Coke bottle. And sure enough, he shows up on the day of their meet with 2 empty glass Coke bottles, gives them both ones, and he beats the world champion ping pong player in a game of ping pong using the Coke bottles that he chose as the paddle. Wow. So like it's a really interesting read because like the whole book is just filled up with stuff like that.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, kind of flirting with the idea of a con, but not so much. It's just being creative in the way you bet. But in this case,
7 odds, so it's not as much of a bet. But I mean, it's still a bet in that scenario. I'd agree, just because the guy's a world class ping pong player. But you're balancing out the universe. Since
you probably owed like $6,500 in car repairs, easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Bart's reading up this book where he's learning all the classics like the pigeon drop and the earwigger and the Brillstein grab. When Homer pops up at the treehouse and is like, "Hey, do they have any father and son grifts?"
Well, there's the Albany ham scam.
Interesting.
Oh, wait, here we go.
And apparently Bart sees something that's going to work because we cut back to the kitchen where Homer and Bart are now frosting a throw pillow. Marge walks in questioning them, and especially the fact that they are frosting that. Why are you frosting that old throw pillow?
Well, I could ask you the very same question.
Should I just back out of the room?
Would you?
I think that's a really great Marge joke, honestly. She's just so used to her husband's like ridiculousness that she's just like, it would just be better that I don't know in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back at the docks, Bart is ready and asking his father if he's ready for their very first con. Homer is like speaking, Homer and Bart both are like speaking very loudly in this lingo. They said con, you bet, let's trim the mark. And even Bart's like, nice use of the lingo, Homer.
10-4, Kemosabe.
Bart
didn't like that one.
Bart is dressed up in a manner suggesting that he is a blind person. He's got a cane and glasses. He's pretending like he can't see. And he's holding this fake cake that we saw was actually a pillow that they frosted when Kent Brockman nearby finishes a phone call and then accidentally turns around and runs right into Bart, which causes him to drop the cake.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh no, what happened? Where's my cake? It's all right, isn't it? And of course, this pillow with frosting is laying on the ground and is apparently convincing enough that Kent doesn't recognize it for what it is.
I mean, if it were me, I might not recognize it. I'm too far away, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I guess if you weren't wearing your glasses.
Even if I was, I still wouldn't be able to tell what it was.
Homer interrupts. What have you done, you clumsy little ox? That cake was for your deaf sister.
Sir, it was my fault.
Oh, no. Don't you protect him. You're going to work off that cake in the acid mines.
Oh, no. I'll pay for the cake.
Well, you're the mark.
Jab.
And Bart's like hitting him in his ribs with his elbow. Mark of integrity.
I mean, so it works.
It works really well, actually. They've already made enough money that they could buy a singing rubber fish, which was always the goal.
Of course, any con, that's the perfect payoff.
They arrive home where Marge is like, oh, there, you're finally home. How was the magic act?
What in the hell are you talking about?
And Bart gives him another like elbow jab in the ribs.
Oh, right. The magic was great. It's really the way to go.
Well,
that's the part that I talk like, I don't know why as a kid, him going, what the hell are you talking about? So blatantly disregarding the question and like giving himself away. That made me laugh hysterically as a child.
It's a good thing Marge backed out of the room earlier. She might have been able to catch on with context clues.
Yeah, exactly.
Lisa's the one that points out, like, you couldn't have done your act. You left your magic kit here.
Or so it would seem.
Again, they're not being subtle, even in the slightest. Like, they're so giving themselves away with every action that they take.
Like, Homer even calls them a sucker as him and Bart walk out of the room.
And Lisa's the one that's like, I don't know, Mom. I think they're up to something.
Sure looks that way. But at least Bart and Homer are spending quality time together.
And we cut back to see that Marge has another very long glass in her arms, and immediately Lisa calls her out, like, is that a Long Island iced tea?
Oh, this? I think it is. You're a pretty girl.
She's like petting Lisa on the face. Hey, Long Island iced teas are a hell of a drug, man.
Yep.
We cut back to the docks where once again Bart is working a scam because he's calling for his lost dog. Dr. Hibbert shows up to help, and Bart says that his dog was playing in the water and then disappeared. He describes the dog and the leash, and we cut out to see that Dr. Hibbert now notices what used to be the dog, or so it would seem, being eaten by a shark that's hanging up on it had already been eaten by a shark that was then caught, essentially. But dog is presumed dead, we would say at this point.
Oh, dear Lord.
He's the bestest dog ever. He's light brown and he has a spot on him shaped like a heart.
Sorry, son, but
I just gotta get him back, or if not him, a similar dog.
God. Ding, 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 ding.
And Homer is walking Santa's little helper that they have painted a heart spot on to match the description. And I love it. Homer is singing out, "Dog for sale, dog for sale."
How much for the dog?
Oh, he's not for sale.
No?
Although, if the right offer came along. I love the immediate just turn from dog for sale. Oh, he's not for sale.
Mm-hmm.
We cut back to the mechanic where we see that the vehicle has not already been fixed up. It's been customized with custom gold license plate holders, a gold chain steering wheel, a license plate that says I gripped. Again, subtlety is not a word that Homer is familiar with.
But this means that they've made at least like $6,600 because I'm going to assume that fish that they bought cost $100, the singing fish.
Don't forget the $350 too.
Yeah. But like this means they're making a hell of a lot of money doing this, which I don't see how they're making that much unless they're redoing the same con over and over.
Hey, you don't know how pathetic Bart can look, dude. That's the secret. And it does seem like they are pulling the same con over and over again because as soon as Homer pays the mechanic, he turns around and runs into Bart, who's wearing a yarmulke, and he's like, "Oh no, I dropped my bar mitzvah cake. Oi, I'll never be a man."
And then he takes the money from the
he just hands Homer's money straight to Bart.
Apparently, that cake cost $6,500.
Yeah, right. The pricey fondant job right there.
Yeah.
It's like custom baked by the Great British Bakers or whatever the hell that show is.
Sure.
We see Homer and Bart are still at it too. Remember, we're supposed to be paying off the car. They just did. And Bart is actually asking them while they pull up to the Flanders home, why are we still grifting, Dad? I mean, the car's paid for. Doesn't that balance out the universe?
In a way. But I also remembered some other stuff, like my bike that was stolen in 3rd grade, plus the baldness.
Okay, I'm sold. It doesn't take much.
Oop.
Homer rings the doorbell, and Ned Flanders answers.
Hello, is the lady of the house in?
Oh no, Homer, remember? Maude got called up to heaven.
Oh, of course. It's just that...
What?
Well, before she died, she ordered this Bible especially for you.
Why, there's my name in gold. And it's this very fancy looking Bible, though I will say it was pointed out in the commentary as well that this Bible is very confusing because in certain scenes the spine seems like it shifts from one side to the other.
Now, you weren't home, so we had to pay the delivery man.
Well, I'll just reimburse you right now. Wait a minute. This seems an awful like that movie Paper Moon.
Run, Dad.
They run up to the treehouse where Homer declares they'll be safe. Bart's actually a little worried because that one was actually a pretty close call, and maybe it's time to quit the game.
Amateurs.
Dad?
That's right. Puff, puff.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite jokes in the episode because immediately Abe lights a pipe and then Bart's like, you don't smoke a pipe.
That's right.
Homer wants to know how he got wise to us, and Abe has some explaining to do.
Are you kidding? They used to call me Grifty McGriff. I wrote the book on flim flamming.
And Bart turns his con book over and sees a picture of young Abe. Oh my, or wow, he really did.
Yeah, in the Depression, you had to grift. Either that or work.
Favorite joke. That and Homer like, I would have made more if I went to work today. So Homer really recognizes that his dad might know what he is talking about and asks him for the pitch.
Team up with me, boys, and we'll go for the biggest honeypot of them all.
And he's talking about the Springfield Retirement Castle, which immediately makes both Bart and Homer a little hesitant. Like, do they really want to be conning old people?
A lot of the retirement homes do.
Exactly, yes. I was going to make a similar joke. Grandpa also points out that if they don't, they're just going to end up giving their money to a televangelist. So it's going to go to a con artist one way or the other.
There you go. Better us than them.
Abe starts to describe his plan. He's basically like, it's exactly the plot of The Sting Part 2, which means nobody saw it. Nobody knows about it. which The Sting 2 really was a movie. The Sting is a very famous movie from 1973, starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford, which gets very high reviews. It's rated an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb. The Sting 2, however, came out a decade later. It was a Jackie Gleason vehicle that just never quite made it up to the original's high bar, and it's rated a 4.3 out of 10 on IMDb, which is basically in that territory of a horror movie where it's actually unwatchably bad. Like in horror, you need to either have like a really high mark or a really low mark. But if you're like between like a 3.5 and a 5.5, you're probably just unenjoyably bad.
Yeah, that one stung a little bit.
The Sting twice. All right. Let's see here. We get back to the retirement home where they're basically done. It's a giant check scam is what's happening. They're delivering
in their car with like the gold lion that Homer put on still on the hood of the car.
It says I grift very blatantly.
I like that it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Homer and Bart are wearing matching outfits, including matching mustaches, which is actually kind of adorable in its own way. Yeah. Homer has this giant check, and they basically are saying that they're from Publishers Clearing Dealy, and they've got a $10 million check for him, which actually causes Abe to have a heart attack, it seems.
They asked if Abe Simpson is there, so like Abe's the
which one of you youngsters is Abe Simpson? I love that. Yeah. One of the old men at the retirement castle is like, everybody come quick. Abe Simpson's rich.
I can't believe it. I can finally afford a young, crazy stripper wife.
All the old people are like cheering for him.
Yeah, I'm going to get me the craziest, strippiest. Oh.
Abe clutches his chest and falls to the ground. Homer, barely checking, just announces he's dead.
Oh, this is terrible. Now who do we give this money to?
I guess we'll just have to haul the check back to headquarters. Too bad, too. We could just give it to these nice folks.
Forget it, Ed. Do you know what it costs to sign over a check this big? Why, the wealth transfer fee would run at least $100 a head.
Yep, you're right. We better just take this check back for shredding.
Oh, wait. We got $100 each. Hang on.
And Jasper leads the charge to rally $100 a head to take this $10,000 check, which seems like a deal that anybody would want to take. In this case, however, we of course see that Bart and Homer think they're about to just fleece the scene and leave, but one of the residents that we do not recognize with some crazy wild hair ends up slapping a pair of handcuffs on Homer and announces himself from the FBI, and he's going to be arresting them for fraud.
Uh-oh.
He pulls off, and he's basically wearing like an old person suit at this point.
Well, then Bart runs and grabs, I forgot what he grabbed, he uses it as a walker, trying to act like he's an old person to get away.
And it's Abe actually hops up and steals somebody's like motorized wheelchair, and he call me Mint Jelly because I'm on the lam. Once again, pretty short, but even for the first act so far. That's the end of our second act, which ends at 13 minutes, 29 seconds. So we've got like a good 9-10 minute, about a 9-minute second act to go, or third act to go, excuse me.
9 minutes? Aww.
Probably not quite that long, honestly, but close to it.
Oh.
We open up with the FBI complimenting Homer and Bart on their car, actually.
Thanks. Took a lot of grifting.
And Bart jabs him for the third time. Please, FBI man, don't throw us in jail. We just made one mistake.
Yeah, we're not criminals. We're just two crazy, mixed-up kids.
That's Homer trying to throw himself in with his kid. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll let you two turn yourselves in. That way they might go easier on you.
You do that for us?
And he unlocks the handcuffs. Well, I did ruin the boy's birthday cake. He sends them in. That's some good callback there, honestly. But the FBI agent tells them to go in, but he's going to be watching them, so no funny business. And Homer walks straight into Chief Wiggum. Chief, I'd like to scare my son straight. Could I show him a jail cell?
I mean, that's some good thinking by Homer there. He's trying to get out.
That's quick on his feet, dude.
Yeah. He even tells Bart, "Don't worry, we'll be okay," before they get in the police station.
Wiggum decides he'll put him in the Rick James suite because it's super freaky. And when Bart and Homer are in the cell, they look out at the FBI agent and are like, all right, we're all locked up now.
Yeah, you big idiot.
Excellent. I guess I'll just be swiping your car now then.
What?
Oh, and I'll be taking this lovely bag of cash too. It's literally a bag labeled it's the money for the scam that was labeled evidence, but he just pulls it out, and he's clearly not the FBI agent that he claims he was. He throws his badge into the cell, and we actually learn that he's just holding a Colgate Cavity Patrol badge.
That guy was a grifter.
Yeah, and he conned us good. Well, at least we still have our jobs at the sweepstakes place. I do say it is kind of weird how Homer goes from like very dumb to very smart in this situation.
It's kind of like Bart. Sometimes he's got street smarts.
Sometimes that crayon shifts.
Yeah.
Homer's telling his son from now on, we're done with all these lies. It's done nothing but cause a mess for us. So it's going to be honesty all the way.
They got to figure out why the car's gone after they just paid $6,500 to get it back.
And we immediately cut to the home where Marge is like confronting him. You were carjacked in the church parking lot.
Absolutely. We had stopped in for a quick prayer when Bart, would you call him a crazy man?
Oh, definitely. Well, crazy about carjacking.
What did he look like?
Let's see. He was foreign, and he had
wild bushy hair like an animal.
And he seemed like a loner, kept to himself mostly.
And he said if we went to the cops, he'd come back for Maggie.
Immediately, Marge is like, "Oh dear, we don't want that."
Anywho, the whole nightmare has really made us sleepy. Let's hit the hay.
Next morning, Marge comes downstairs, and Homer and Marge are watching the news, and we see that because of this crazed foreign carjacker, because of their description, he has been caught on live TV. And it's none other than groundskeeper Willie being arrested by Lou and Eddie.
I didn't do it, I tell you.
And Homer immediately is like, uh-oh.
At least let me comb my hair. It's all wild and bushy.
What do you care, loner?
Well, look at that. But who called the police?
And Lisa chimes in, well, we did, of course.
After we got Maggie to a safe house, of course.
And we see it Patty and Selma's where they're trying to feed Maggie a manwich for what it's worth,
and they've got a wig on her, so she looks like
witness protection, dude. We're watching on TV, I believe, at Patty and Selma's when Willie pops back up on screen.
You cannot do this to Willie. I'm innocent, I tell you.
They always say they're innocent. It's just such a turnoff.
Oh, Marge likes the bad boys, eh?
Apparently, yeah.
Dad, Willie got arrested because of us.
Of course he did, son. He's a filthy crook. Now let's all hit the hay.
It's 10 in the morning.
Well, I guess you haven't heard of chloroform, and he literally chloroforms himself.
Just got it on hand. But like, he chloroforms himself and immediately is snoring, though. I've never been chloroformed. I've never used chloroform, but I don't know, like, when you pass out, do you just immediately hit that sweet rim spot right there?
I think Homer does.
He actually needs it now.
Cut to the courtroom where the blue-haired lawyer is actually interrogating Willie about his whereabouts at the time of the carjacking.
Which the Simpsons can't afford the blue-haired lawyer, let's be honest.
I mean, I don't think it would be the Simpsons that were paying for him in this case. So I think it would be that would be like the the state prosecutor.
Maybe so, but I thought because it was the carjacking, he'd be representing
the blue-haired lawyer. Shouldn't be working in this case, regardless, though, because he's definitely not taking that sucker money. Unless I don't know, it's probably like one of those weird things where you're required to do so many of those cases a year.
this doesn't all add up in my mind yet.
Well, Willie's question about his whereabouts regardless.
I was alone in me Unabomber-style shack. I had nothing to do with that carjacking.
Carjacking? Who said anything about carjacking?
But didn't you just say...
I'll ask the questions here, carjacker Willie.
Objection.
Judge chimes in. I'm going to allow it. It characterizes the defendant as a carjacker.
Dad, we've got to tell everyone the truth.
Shh, let's see how this plays out. And we actually see that the lawyer is now interrogating Homer. Mr. Simpson, could you describe your assailant to the court?
I told you, my memory is fuzzy. Fuzzy.
Fuzzy? Like Willie's beard?
Yes, exactly. No, I mean, the whole incident is hazy.
Oh, you mean hazy, like the moors of Scotland.
Yes, exactly.
I like how every time he tries to chloroform himself here, but he accidentally uses Mountain Dew, so it doesn't work. I do love, though, that the lawyer is just like making these wild like connections that really are very, very loose at best. And like the whole galley is like, oh my God, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
We get a common trope of Homer at this point later on when he's holding up a little pennant that says justice in the courtroom.
Miles, do you know why Batman doesn't put any like coloring on his snow cones or any flavoring on his snow cones?
Justice is that's gonna sound bad. Go ahead.
No, because whenever he orders his snow cones, he always says what he craves most is just ice.
Just ice, nice. That makes sense. That's funny. Mr. Foreman, has the jury reached a verdict?
I believe we was promised $5 a day.
And then he hands out, somebody literally gives him a $5 bill.
All right then. Guilty.
And Willie, of course, is upset because he's clearly innocent. We know. The judge says, however, carjacker Willie, I sentence you to 10 years in prison. Bang!
Dad, tell them.
Shh, when the time is right.
10 years, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, sure you didn't. Now let's get you to Attica.
No!
And Willie actually snatches Wiggum's gun. So this fake situation is now turning into a real bad time.
Serious situation. You'll never send me up the river.
And Bart's still pleading with his father, who's still like, hold on, let's see where this is going. Willie is now aiming the gun through the galley. Everyone's ducking and screaming. And then a shot is fired that goes through Marge's hair. Principal Skinner is trying to plead with Willie to calm down and ends up getting shot in the chest before falling to the floor, presumably dead.
The Simpsons shot Mr. Burns once, so it's plausible. Stop! This has gone on just long enough.
Did he have a vendetta against Skinner? Is that why it was just long enough? I just needed the principal to die, and then I'm ready to stop lying.
Nobody carjacked me. I tried to pull a con and got conned myself, and then I lied to you all. So did Bart.
And then Marge stands up and rings a bell. Okay, players, that's a wrap.
Yay!
Yay! Lisa's like, nice work, everybody.
Wait a minute. This whole thing was a setup?
But Skinner got shot.
Yep, blanks and a blood pack.
And the blood squirts all over Ralph, which I love this so much because Ralph is like, I look like cable TV.
What about that bullet hole in your hair?
Marge, it's squibs, which she makes a couple more holes with.
It always bothers me when there's holes in Marge's hair. Like, it does not look right. The lowest one always looks like it should be cutting off the top of her head.
Yeah, for sure. Or her rabbit ears.
Yeah.
Also, this entire time, by the way, the judge was not Judge Schneider, that should have already been giving everybody like red flags that something weird was about to happen. But it's actually Abe who pulls off the mask and is like, "Yep, we hornswoggled you good."
But what about the guy who took my car?
And the FBI agent drives the car into the courtroom and introduces himself as Devin Brackley, character, actor, dancer, and singer. I'm a triple threat.
He's doing Dreamcoat at the dinner theater.
Homer's like, I can't believe everyone was in on it.
Willie wasn't. He fired the gun.
There's a lot of implications with the fact that Willie was not in on that. The mental assault that was like put on him for one, but yeah, he's the one that thought he actually killed his boss. Homer can't believe it. Wait a minute, you're telling me the police force, the TV news, a courthouse full of people, a popular entertainer had nothing better to do than teach me and Bart a lesson?
I know it seems far-fetched, even insulting to your intelligence, but there's a simple and highly satisfying explanation. You see...
Hey, everybody, surf's up! And Otto burst in with a surfboard, and for no reason whatsoever, we cut from the courtroom to a beach of some sort, the ocean, where everybody that we've seen in this episode, from Questo, the mentalist server, to the Russian cosmonauts, and even the Sturgeon that landed on the car, they're all surfing, and the Sturgeon jumps out of the water and winks at the camera, which brings us to the end of our third act, and I was wrong. It was closer to like 8 minutes on that one for what it's worth. That was the end of our third act and the end of the episode, The Great Money Caper. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to talk about on this episode?
This was a waste of Edward Norton.
Okay, fair.
Edward Norton was the FBI agent.
The FBI, the triple threat, yeah.
He had like very little talking in this episode, and I feel like, especially in around 2000, he was a much bigger deal than he is nowadays, or he was definitely on the uprise back then, and I feel like they should have done more with him. Like, I really, really do. Give him a bigger role or something. So I felt like they wasted Edward Norton, and I decided when Community did like its second grifting episode, like in the later seasons, that I'm not the biggest fan of grifting episodes, because even when as a child watching the Simpsons episode, I just never believe what's going on. If it seems too far-fetched, then I don't believe it. And like, there's so much when the FBI agent shows up and going forward, there's so much where you're just like, I don't believe this. Now, I'm not saying I can't be grifted in real life, because I don't want to set that up. I'm just saying, like, from a television standpoint where everything's supposed to make sense and things are only on screen for a reason, I just never believe what I see until I know the episode's almost over. It takes me out of the moment, I guess, is what I'm saying.
That's fair. I think for me, the first two acts of this were really enjoyable. And then there's something about the third act. I think what it is that the highlight of this episode is getting to watch Homer and Bart just bonding and having fun and doing something together, which is always a recipe for a good time with the Simpsons. And as soon as their grifting starts to fall apart, which we don't really know it's officially happening, but like you said, you always know you can't believe everything you're seeing. And there's something weird about this courtroom, the fact that the blue-haired lawyer is prosecuting, the fact that Judge Snyder isn't there, the fact that everything just feels a little bit too convenient. And it turns out that's exactly what it was. It wasn't real. So I do feel like the third act kind of falls apart in this one, but honestly, thinking about it, I think that's probably true for like most grift movies and episodes too. I think seeing all the setup of it is usually a lot more fun than seeing the execution and outcome, essentially.
But that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like then the premise of most grifting shows or movies, the stakes are too high, where they can't logically write a way to get out of it in a way that'll make everybody happy. It's too much to work around, and too much has to go perfect. We expected you to arrest this person and do it this way. That was part of our plan the whole time. Well, what if they took you to another jail? We knew you wouldn't, because we'd set up the traffic cameras to make sure you went a certain route. And it's like, oh my God, just stop already. Like, you spent more money and time making this this plan happened, then the money like at the end is even worth. Sorry, there's my little rant.
No, but and then at the end, it's usually always like, and they ended up like getting rid of it or living happily ever after with like the girl that they were trying to like, you know, I'm pretty much just calling out Ocean's 11 right now, but it seems like there's always that other aspect where it's like there's, you know, she's either another thief or like, you know, married to the person you're robbing or whatever the case may be, but there's always like that added sense where it's just like, was this really necessary? And if I were planning a $1 billion caper, am I gonna let my feelings fuck with it? Like,
I'll never go with you. You're a grifter. Oh wait,
better than
you're
that.
A grifter with a heart of gold.
Now you're
that's exactly what I'm into.
Did you say heart of gold or a lot of gold? Either way,
both.
But yeah, that I think is gonna do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly. Richie, where can they find us online?
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off all over social media, so I recommend you do that very thing. You can also follow me at TheWiz_Kid23. You can do that thing if you so choose to do it. But most importantly, you should most certainly follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And Richie and I are almost definitely going to be back with a Best Darn Everything coming up next. But when we do get back to The Simpsons, our next episode we're going to be reviewing is another one I am excited about. I have fond memories of this episode. I'm excited to see if they hold up. We're going to be discussing Skinner's Sense of Snow.
Let's see how this plays out.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.